Hello, my American Studies 340 students. This is your Professor Donald Earl Collins, or soon-to-be professor and soon-to-be students in terms of this course, meaning that we won't meet for about 3.5 weeks. So for those who are going to be in my class on Thursday, August 27th, 2020, this is Professor Donald Earl Collins. I'm reaching out to you today because the university has asked us to talk to you all to reassure you about our plans for the fall, reassure you about how my class going fully online will work this fall. It doesn't really change in your case in terms of how I anticipated running this class, partly because I anticipated doing online this fall as far back as April, and partly because the way I do upper level classes is pretty much actually lends itself to online in a lot of ways too. So there really isn't that much to be concerned about from your learning standpoint. The main issue really for us is going to be around how proactive, how self-motivated, how self-disciplined you are on your end in terms of doing the work. And that would be the case whether this class is meeting face-to-face or not. Because this class, Critical Perspectives on Race and Education in the United States or in America, is a class that depends on you doing a lot of work on your own. It does. That's just a fact. It's also considered a community-based class, a CB class in terms of AU's designation, meaning that you're expected to do roughly 20 hours worth of work with an organization, in this case a school district, an individual school, an after-school program, a university, an education think tank, a foundation that funds education, anything that's related to the field of education. A nonprofit organization that's doing pass-through grants, working on projects related to K-12 or post-secondary ed, or even grad school ed, or even pre-K, right? Pre-K and preschool. So because people learn, kids learn how to read and even write in preschool and pre-K and preschool as well. So those kinds of things. So let me go through the course in general. The course is the way I anticipated running this course was essentially as a seminar, right? An upper level undergraduate seminar, meaning that there isn't a lot of lecturing. There wouldn't be a lot of lecturing anyway. I might do 20 or 30 minutes talking about an introduction to, say, Native Americans being forced to go to boarding schools between the end of the 19th century and for most of the 20th century, for instance, in the United States and Canada, and how that kind of learning and forced assimilation had disastrous consequences for Native Americans across in the United States and even in Canada, talking about that, for instance, right, going on, talking a bit about the difference between exclusion, segregation, and integration for African American kids, and at the public school setting, particularly in the South, in the period after the Civil War, emancipation, and Reconstruction, just as another, for instance, right? And just, those would be things that I would lecture on, but I wouldn't spend an entire 2.5 hours if we were in a face-to-face setting lecturing on anyway. So the way I would do this face-to-face would be, okay, maybe I'll spend, we have a book to read that we're going to spend 2 weeks on. You're covering a variety of different themes for the first 2 weeks. And in the process of doing that, we talk about other readings. I might give you some guiding questions before we meet week 1 or week 2. We talk about those readings, but in the process, I give you like a 20, 30-minute introductory lecture on this is the topic, this is why this topic's important, here's the general scope of the literature on it, let's talk about what we've actually been reading for this week and next week on this topic. That's how I would do that face-to-face. It's the same thing. The only difference is I might do a video lecture as an introduction to the topic, and you would watch that before we would and read the guiding questions before we actually meet via Zoom for an hour to talk about these different things per week, right? So we will not be meeting for 2.5 hours from 5:30 to 8 o'clock on Thursdays. We'll be meeting for roughly an hour from 5:30 to 6:30 on Thursdays, where I would talk to you about these different things. So that's what I anticipate. You'll have you'll have 3 reflections to do on the topic. You'll have a reflection the first week that would be a combination of your own personal thoughts about what you anticipated learning in this course and what you might have gotten out of the initial reading. At this point, the first reading you'll probably be doing for this course is Young, Gifted, and Black. So that's what I anticipate. I'm still trying to set things up. Not everything is available via ebook. That book happens to be. I think there are a couple of books that aren't, and I'm PDFing those as we speak. So you'll have those by the time the course starts. They should be online on Blackboard. In fact, all of your readings will be on Blackboard unless they're specifically things that you have to download or reserve through ebook through Bender Library at AU. So you won't have to go out and spend any money on books this semester, which is good, right? There are not 35 or more of you, so there are no copyright issues, so that's also good. So anyway, so that's our format for the semester. We will meet once a week from 5:30 to 6:30 on Thursdays via Zoom. I will ask you about what you're getting out of the readings for each week. Starting with week 1, you will not have to read the whole book the first week. I won't expect that. I would expect mostly for you to have read the articles actually for that first week, and we'll spend more time on the book the second week. Plus, you won't have that much time to talk about this stuff the first week because I will go over the syllabus, especially with regard to the other aspects of the course, which are you have 2 papers to write, and you'll have a project that is a semester-long project to work on. These will be spread out. There will be weeks where you'll hardly meet. We won't really be meeting toward the end. I had written the syllabus in a way where we weren't going to meet for 2 weeks, so that you would have more time on your projects. These are individual projects. I didn't anticipate possibility in this course of doing group projects. If someone wants to do a group project, that's fine. Your group can't be more than 2 people, meaning that it has to be one other person in the course. I don't care if you're friends, but keep in mind if someone ends up doing a large share of the work and the other person stops contributing, you might not be friends anymore by the time the project's over. So keep that in mind. So I'll just throw that out as a prospect, but for the most part, anticipate as the initial syllabus was written back in February. Individual research projects looking at some aspect of education and that deals with race and other dimensions. Could be K-12, could be daycare, could be funding K-12, could be higher ed, could be about campus climate, could be about testing, could be about policing children in schools, could be about any number of things. The syllabus goes through this in much more detail, and I'm not going to go through all that detail now. But if you're worried about how this is going to work, as I said in my email, I will reiterate this. I have a lot of experience doing online learning, teaching online courses. At my other university, University of Maryland Global Campus, formerly known as the University of Maryland University College, I've been teaching there for nearly 13 years. 2/3 or more, somewhere between 2/3 and 80% of the courses I've taught there were either hybrid courses. We met once a week, but we still had an online component, including online discussion, or strictly online courses where everything was done online. I never met the students. Heck, in a lot of cases, I've never even seen pictures of these students, so I don't even know what, probably 1,000 of my students have looked like over the years. So I've had a lot of experience developing materials, figuring out how to, create manageable chunks of stuff in terms of readings per week, lesson plans, rubrics, assignments, so that everything's reasonable. So I will preload everything in terms of what my expectations are in the syllabus. The readings will be on Blackboard or be able to download or reserve through the library, through Bender Library. The assignments, your personal reflections are going to be at the beginning of the course, middle of the course, and the end of the course. You have 1 paper in the first half, 1 paper early in the second half, and the bulk of your work will be on your on research, doing research on assignments, doing your research projects. Mostly individual. If you want to do a group one with someone working together with you, that's fine too. We'll talk more about that as the semester starts and we get going. But like I said, a lot of what we're doing works well for our online format simply because of the fact that this was going to be a lot of independent on your own work in terms of getting ready for this course anyway, right? Seminar style of learning and a research project is sort of the bulk of what you're doing. The one other thing I want to add before I close out for this pre-course recording is that one of the things I didn't anticipate but still would work is the fact that, since we're no longer meeting on campus, the course was designed so that you could do work in the DMV, right? If you wanted to do Montgomery County Public Schools instead of DC Public Schools, you could. If you wanted to do charter schools in Prince George's County or DC, you could have done that. If you want to do Fairfax County, you could do that, so on and so forth. Since some of you, I'm anticipating at least some of you are going to be outside of DMV, right? So work in your local context. You do not have to either, figure out how to do this virtually. If there's a local school that you want to do work with, or a daycare center, or a think tank, or a foundation, or a nonprofit group, or a university or college in your area that fits well with your schedule, figure that part out. You want to start that process of figuring out where you want to do this work to get the CB designation as part of this course, and in terms of your project for this course. You want to figure that out sooner rather than later. So that's part of being more proactive and being self-motivated in this course. Do not wait until week 3, week 4, week 5 to go, hey, I live in Larchmont, New York. Maybe I should work with with them instead of doing something in DC. That's too late. You want to start the process at least thinking about where you want to do your work now. I'll do as much as I can to support you, but this part is part that you have to work out. So anyway, that's it. Hopefully this helps. Send me an email if any of you have any questions. Otherwise, I will prepare diligently over the next 3.5 weeks so that I'm ready when we start on August the 27th.